Hello, and thanks for joining us. On behalf of the Environmental Finance Center Network, welcome to our Workforce Planning webinar for Alabama Water Systems. My name is Tess Clark. I work here at the Syracuse University Environmental Finance Center. And before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few logistics. First, everyone will be on mute just to ensure audio quality. If you have a question, you can go ahead and type it into the GoToWebinar question dialog box anytime throughout the session. All of the questions are going to be reserved for a Q&A at the end, but feel free to send questions at any time. We will be posting the presentations from today as well as a video recording on our website, and you can reach that website at www.efcnetwork.org. All of our webinars can be found under the Past Events tab. We will be posting a recording of today's webinar and the presentation slides as soon as we can after the broadcast, and we will also send you a link to those materials in a follow-up email in just a few days. It will be sent to the same email that you used to register for the webinar. Okay, and just as a reminder, we do not submit our webinars to licensing agencies for pre-approval of continuing education credit. We do, however, send a certificate of attendance as a courtesy. So if you've joined this webinar with the intention of using it to support some PDH or CEU hours, please know that we can only supply the certificate after we verify attendance, and it can take a couple weeks to send out certificates. And you have to attend the entire webinar to receive one, and if possible, please join the webinar using the join link you received when you registered. You must view the slides and listen to audio, so if you only called in, it will not mark you as attended. Again, we can't guarantee that this webinar will meet the requirements for any sort of specific CEU or license renewal needs. If you have questions about this, you can email us at smallsystems@syr.edu. Okay, and now for a little bit about us. The Environmental Finance Center Network provides training and technical assistance to small public water systems in all U.S. states and territories to help local systems achieve their goals and stay in compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act. And as you might guess, the EFCN is a university-based network. You can see a list of all of our network members here. We work together to create solutions to difficult how-to-pay issues of environmental protection and improvement. On that note, I'd like to introduce Leslie Kimball from the Wichita State University Environmental Finance Center. Leslie started her career in marketing and professional development with the Disney Institute, a division of the Disney company that trains organizations worldwide based on the business insights and best practices of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, and we all know how good they are at that. At WSU, Leslie provides training and technical assistance on workforce planning topics, ranging from employee recruitment and succession planning to water system branding and marketing strategy. So welcome, Leslie. I'm going to hand over screen control to you now. And I'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you, Tess. I am going to pull up my presentation here. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about a topic that's gained a lot of popularity over the past few years, our workforce planning for small water systems topic. Oh, okay, let me just adjust. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today. First, I'm going to cover very quickly why water is important, which I'm sure if you're on this webinar, you have a good idea, but we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to connect it to the state of the water workforce today, what challenges we're facing. We're going to talk about some succession planning tips in our water organizations, and then we're going to talk about how we find those replacement workers. And then once we have great workers at our utility, how do we keep them there? Okay, so let's take a step back, talk about the big picture of water real quick, its importance in our lives. Seems like a pretty simple question and an obvious answer, but water is a pretty big deal. So it's the only liquid on the planet that's essential for life. We rely on it every day, not just for health, sanitation, but safety. Our local economies depend on reliable water delivery. And without the safety and convenience of our water utilities, we would not have communities that would exist as we know them today. So our communities rely on these services, yet ironically, if you don't work in this industry, very few people know a lot about public water. So it's almost like for the customer, it gets to their house by magic. They don't have to give it much thought, but we know it definitely does not get to our houses by magic. It takes a lot of work and a lot of people to make this service happen. So there is this overall lack of visibility in the water industry and in the water career path. So sometimes quite literally, our infrastructure is invisible. It's buried underground. Our treatment plants are tucked into the corners of our community. It's almost like the water industry prefers to be out of sight. That means they're doing a great job, nothing's going wrong. But it doesn't work in our favor when we're trying to get people to be aware of careers in this industry. So it's time for public water utilities to take off that invisibility cloak and start telling people about water and about careers in water. So you, public water employees, are some of the few people out of the billions on the earth that can take our limited freshwater resources and make it safe for everyone in our entire community. That's a really big, important job. And we need to make sure we have that talent lined up that can continue this important job once our current water workers retire or move on to other career opportunities. So that's why this topic of workforce planning has become so popular over the last couple of years. So if you talk to the average person, your average customer on the street in your town about water, about how much they think about tap water, most of them, if they're honest, would say that they typically don't give it much thought at all. They don't worry about it. Their glass is half full when it comes to water. But the reality is our public water systems, they need a lot of attention. We have crumbling infrastructure, we have our aging treatment plants, the economic vitality of our communities is at risk. You know, our ability to attract jobs and drive economical growth. Every business, every home in our community needs water to make that happen. And then we have the issue of rising costs. And it's funny how, you know, it always ends up coming back to money, right? Makes it way more difficult. So EPA estimates that $473 billion in drinking water infrastructure investment is going to be needed over the next 20 years. As we have our aging pipes, our storage facilities need upgrades and replacements. And then we also have deteriorating source water. Some of the groundwater sources that we have may be unusable in less than 15 to 20 years if we don't take action to take care of them. And then we have this final problem of the shrinking workforce, which is what we're going to focus on today, but is also, you know, tied into these other challenges the industry faces. So just like our infrastructure is aging, so is our water workforce. Many of our water operators and our employees have worked in this industry for many years. They're getting ready to retire. So there's this wave of retirements mixed with an overall lack of visibility of water careers that has made finding and replacing talent a big challenge for water systems, not just in Alabama, but for water systems across the country, and of course, especially for our smaller water utilities. So the good news is that even though we have a lot of challenges and the problems in this industry are very real, they are fixable, but it's going to take good talent, good people to make that happen, and we're going to need them quickly. So let's move on and just talk about the overall kind of current state of the water workforce today. So we know when we pay our monthly water bill, we aren't really paying for the water itself, right? It's not a product. It's only part of it. It's the services provided at our water utility where the real value of public water is. So before it arrives at the tap, a great deal of work goes into ensuring that all the water distributed to customers is safe to use, readily accessible. So we know the three main costs of providing water service are plants, the treatment, so pipes would be the second, the infrastructure, and then most importantly, the labor, our people. which in smaller communities, the water infrastructure may be the largest investment of the community. There's lots of expensive equipment and technology we have to invest in and manage to make sure our community's water is safe and environmentally responsible. But at the end of the day, the people at our water utility are our most important asset, right? And we have to manage and invest in our people at our plant really well to ensure that our community's water is in good hands. So, water jobs are very critical. Why are they so hard to fill? So Brookings Institute did a big study a few years ago on renewing the water workforce, and they identified in that study 3 key factors to the water workforce problem. So first of all, economic disparity. There's communities that struggle to achieve economic growth that provide the equitable and inclusive employment opportunities it takes. Second, we have that aging infrastructure problem again. So our water infrastructure is in need of urgent repair, maintenance, and restoration. So we need people to help us fix these problems, and we need them fast. And then finally, there's an employment gap. So workers capable of carrying out these efforts are in short supply due to an aging workforce eligible for retirement and that lack of new talent coming into the industry. So those are the 3 key challenges we're facing. All right, so have you guys ever heard of the term silver tsunami? I just learned about it this year, but this is a term that has kind of been coined among HR professionals to describe the wave of baby boomer retirements that everyone is going to be facing this year. So for every 2 experienced workers leaving the workforce, only 1 will enter, and every day 10,000 baby boomers turn 55. So especially in the water industry, we have a lot of baby boomers that make up the workforce, and they're just getting to that age where they're ready to retire. So in the water industry specifically, there's 3 million water professionals that will need to be replaced over the next decade. But the need for people in water industry is going to continue to grow because of communities that are growing, infrastructure projects that are happening, etc. So me and my colleague Tanya, who helps me teach the full day workshop of this topic, we put this comic in here, but we really don't like it because we think it's very frightening and dire and not at all how baby boomers should be portrayed. So we like to think of it like this instead. The way we see it, baby boomers have put in lots of years of hard work. They have lots of experience. We should let them retire in style, and we don't want them to have to worry about what's going to happen when they leave. So we want them to be appreciated and celebrated. But if we want them to do this, we have to be prepared. We have to think about how we're going to capture all that they know, how we're going to replace those knowledge, skills, and capabilities that are walking out the door with them. Are we going to promote existing staff? Are we going to invest in training, professional development? Will we need to hire new people? If so, who? So lots of questions, need to have a plan, and despite what some people think, we can't just find anyone right off the street to run our water utility. There's too much at stake. We have to find the right people with a certain talent set and a certain skill set. And even a set of soft skills that are necessary, personality traits, to be in these types of positions. So we know that it is not so much a matter of if we have people leaving our water utility, it's a matter of when. So this is why succession planning, our next topic, is so important. So just like we take time to update our budget every year, our asset management plan, our capital improvement plans, the utility should also be taking some time to look at their workforce plan. So a big part of this process is what we call succession planning. So definition of succession planning, it's a systematic approach to building replacement workers to ensure continuity by identifying potential successors in critical work processes. So what does this mean? Basically, first of all, this is systematic. There's a plan. It's methodical. We got to take time to make the plan, and ideally, we need to do it before people leave. It doesn't have to be a complicated plan, but we do have to make a plan. All right, so second part of this definition, it's kind of easier to work it backwards. So first of all, we'll start with the critical work processes. So we want to, first, we're going to identify that critical work at the water utility, and then we're going to think about who can fill that work if the current person doing that work leaves. Do we have someone in-house? Do we need to hire someone? And then why are we doing this? We're doing this to ensure continuity. You know, we can't just shut down the water treatment plant for 2 weeks while we find someone to run it. You know, the show must go on. We have to make sure that that continuity of this very critical work for the community continues. So that's why the planning ahead part is so important. Okay, so are you ready for people to leave? That's the funny thing about people. They don't last forever. They don't have a repair and replacement schedule like some of our other assets do. They're completely unpredictable. So it's not just the silver tsunami that's going to take our staff away from our utility. People leave for all sorts of reasons. We have leaving for different jobs. There's FLA reasons people leave. You know, there's other circumstances that could cause you not to come to your job, like you could win the lottery and move to an island and never come back, or my more pessimistic colleague likes to say, you could get hit by a bus. So there's all sorts of reasons why we might not show up to work. But when people do leave, it's never usually at a convenient time, right? There's rarely a great time for people in our organization to leave us. Kind of catches us somewhat off guard sometimes. So if we have a plan in place, our lives are a whole lot easier when that does happen. So we're going to walk through a really easy way for you to get started with succession planning at your utility. It's a process we call gap analysis. So it's kind of a three-part process. We're going to start with looking at what does our workforce look like today, the current state of our workforce. Then we're going to skip over and think ahead, 5 to 10 years from now. What do we need in our workforce tomorrow? That's our desired state of our workforce. And then we're going to look at the gaps between the two. And what is missing is kind of going to be our action plan and our succession planning process. So let's break this down into more detail. So first step of your gap analysis is going to be thinking about what do you have today and who do you have today at your utility in your workforce. This is the current state of your workforce. Basically, it's like taking a snapshot in time of what employees we have working for us, what positions we have vacant, what knowledge, skills, and abilities do each of these employees or positions currently have. So I have that picture of a camera up there in the corner because current state is like a snapshot of your current workforce. It's like a picture. So other data you might want to collect and analyze during this process that would be helpful in painting this picture of what your current workforce looks like would be employee profiles, you know, a breakdown of how many people and what positions you have working where. Also, don't forget to look outside of your utility, your community demographics. What's your population doing? Is it growing? Is it declining? What big businesses do you support today? What's your tourism look like? Other things to be considering would be retirements. You know, what are your employees' hard skills and soft skills? Do you have anyone that you're trying to develop as a new leader? Are you identifying potential in management? And then what's the average age and tenure of your current employee? What's your attrition rate? What's your vacancy rate, turnover rate? All good things to kind of think about when we're painting that picture of what we're working with today. All right, so the second step in our gap analysis, which is helping us to succession plan, is the desired state of our workforce. So now we are thinking ahead in 5 to 10 years, what is our utility going to need in our workplace? So that's why I have a picture of that crystal ball. Unlike our current state where we know exactly what we have, we of course can't predict exactly what we're going to need in the future, but we can take a look at some internal and external variables, and we can do our best to predict what we're going to need. So thinking about this, think about, you know, what retirements you have coming up. Think about internally, is there any ways that we can change the way work has been done? You know, this is a great time to think outside of the box and not just keep doing things the way we've always been doing them because that's the way we've done it. Maybe there's a position that could kind of overlap in skills. Maybe there's some new work we could contract that we've been doing ourselves. Maybe we partner with an existing utility. There's different ways we could do work in the future. Now's the time to kind of play around with that. What about changes in our shift work? Maybe there's been a shift that we're really struggling to have people cover. You know, how could we switch that up to maybe make it easier in the future to have people working that shift? So then we want to take a look again externally, local demographic changes, any environmental changes we're facing. You know, are we facing more drought? Are we having increased flooding events? How is that going to affect us? Political changes. Of course, technology is always changing in this industry. How is that going to affect who we need, who we don't need? And then regulatory requirements. What regulations do you see coming in the next 5 to 10 years that might affect, you know, certifications or skills you're going to need in the future? So all of these things are good things to think about when you're thinking about that desired state of the workforce at your utility. All right, so first step in our workforce gap analysis was to take that snapshot of where we are today. That's our current state or our workforce supply. The second step we just talked about was to predict to the best of our ability where we need to be in the future. That's our desired state. It's called our workforce demand. Now we're going to take the difference between the two and figure out what's missing in the third step. That's where the gaps are in our plan. That's why this is called gap analysis. It's called your human resources gap. And I have a picture of a steak up in the corner of the slide because this is the meat of our succession planning. All right, so what's missing? It could be a single position. It could be that we have all our positions filled, but we're going to be missing a certification or a skill. And then we think about, you know, how are we going to fill that gap? Are we going to train someone? Are we going to hire someone? And then we can kind of play with the formula here, like remove one person from the workforce. What knowledge, skills, and abilities and certifications leave with them? You know, how vulnerable does that leave us as a utility? So depending on your system, who you have, this tool could be used to think about professional development. It could be used to think about reorganization. It can be used to think about hiring needs, etc. So a lot of helpful ways to use this tool and a really easy way to get started with succession planning. Okay, so we realized that process, you know, we don't have a lot of time to sit down and do this. We've got, you know, a water treatment plant to be running 24/7. So we want to kind of prioritize and identify those critical work processes that the person doing that job, if they were to leave tomorrow or something were to happen to them, something really bad would happen or our utility wouldn't be able to continue doing its work, okay? So we want to think about in the different jobs or the different people we have at our utility right now, which of those people or positions have a very high organizational impact and a high probability of vacancy. That makes them very high risk, and those are the people we want to start succession planning with first, okay? And then, you know, we might have people that have a very high organizational impact and maybe, you know, maybe not so much of a probability of vacancy, but we would still want to consider them medium risk. So we want to kind of prioritize who we are going to do this process with. All right, so this is a quote about wastewater that I really like it applied to drinking water as well. Because it kind of demonstrates the importance and criticality of these jobs and the importance of finding the right people for the job. So this is Kyle Salmon. He is a public works employee in my home state of Kansas. And he said, in 1 hour shift, a wastewater operator will do more for public health than a doctor is able to do in a lifetime. So, you know, I think the same could be said about drinking water operators. Water is medicine for people. We need it to live, and it affects so many people in our community. We just cannot afford to hire anyone, right, to do these jobs. It has to be people that have the skills, the talent, and really our trust. Okay, so that's going to bring us to our next topic, which is recruiting people to work in this industry. So this is tough, and this is probably the toughest part about the Water Workforce Challenge. Where do we find these people? You know, how do we get the younger generations interested in water careers? We're going to talk about all of that. So the short answer is we have to get out there and start telling people about these career opportunities. We have to get out there and tell a positive story about working in water. So it's kind of like marketing in a way, and I know it's not always comfortable to think of recruiting as marketing, but it really is. We are trying to sell people on a water career. And to do this, we kind of have to think like a marketer for a little bit. Sounds scary, but it's not. We'll talk about it exactly what we need to do, but the main thing you need to focus on is just tell your water story. What got you in this industry? Why do you like working in water? You know, if there's a reason that you like it, there's definitely people out there that are going to resonate with those same reasons. So, sidestep to this campaign here. This is Rosie the Riveter. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this campaign or seen the pictures before. So this is a recruiting campaign that was created by the US government back at World War II. They needed women to work in the munitions industry when all the guys were overseas. And so they created this, you know, bandana clad, strong looking female, Rosie the Riveter, to get women to start working in the munitions industry, and it did work. So between 1940 and 1945, women in that workforce increased 10%. And so this was one of the most successful recruitment tools in American history. And it kind of makes you think, okay, you know, how can the water industry or your water utility create its own campaign to kind of recruit people to work in this industry? We got to get out there and start talking about water, you know, visit schools, visit board meetings, at community events, talking on social media, online. Got to get out there and start sharing our water careers with people. So when we're talking about water careers, we want to promote the benefits of working in water. So we're going to go through some of those benefits today and talk about how we can kind of use these in our own water campaigns. So you guys will know these to be true if you work in water, but you may not have thought of these benefits as selling points to the career before. So we're going to talk about 4 main points that you want to focus on highlighting on your employment websites, on your job postings. So the 4 we're going to talk about today: first, environmental stewardship. We're going to talk about public service, talk about some personal benefits of working in the water industry, and then finally the high-tech nature of the industry, which is very much a selling point for people. All right, so environmental stewardship, something we want to focus on when we're talking about how great it is to work in water. Protecting the environment is a selling point that interests people in not only this career, but careers in general. Research shows that environmental messaging on a company's website increased the job seeker's willingness to pursue employment with that company, especially in our younger generations, our millennials, and the new generation after our millennials are called Gen Z. They very much have an interest in doing work that does good for the environment. So this example is from DC Water, who simply states on their employment webpage, Are you ready to improve the environment? We are committed to providing world-class water and wastewater services as a leading environmental steward. So in other words, they're saying when you work here, you do good for the environment. And that's something that job seekers can feel good about. You know, we live in a world where big industries and businesses are kind of being shown in the media as having a detrimental effect on planet Earth. And so, you know, providing a place to work that is helping the Earth is something that people can get excited about. So if you need inspiration for updating some of the language on your hiring webpage, I encourage you to visit dcwaters.com/careers. They do a really great job incorporating some of these messages about working in water that you could kind of just make your own and make work for your utility. So I also really like this example because it does a really great job displaying our second selling point, which is public service. It talks about making a difference and making a profound impact in the community. You know, this work sounds like work that matters. That excites people, that encourages them to keep reading or to click that find a job button. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about public service and how it's definitely a selling point for working in the water industry. So everyone wants to do work that matters. Show people all of the unique ways that water matters in your community. Show them how water touches everything we care about. You know, water is vital for our homes, our schools, our zoos, recreation, businesses, industry, quality of life, all these things. Water is very important to. So how much water do you pump to your local pool? How many miles of service line do you have underground? Kind of bring to the surface these cool facts about water that aren't easily realized, but are very relatable to everyone. All right, I also really love the idea of using photos of your current employees, along with quotes of, you know, their opinion of working or what they like about working at your utility. This example shows recruits how this job is dedicated to a larger purpose, how it contributes to the environment and public health. All right, so let's move on to talk about some personal benefits about working in the water industry. As far as personal benefits, there's lots of advancement opportunities in the water industry. You know, lots of operators start out at smaller systems and they can put in those years of experience. They can take their exams to be able to kind of work up and maybe work at larger systems someday. You know, operators often transition from technical to more managerial positions over time. And then most jobs in public works offer a variety of roles and tasks. You're not going to be stuck doing the same thing every day. You're not going to be stuck behind a desk all day every day. You know, you're going to be able to get outside and do different things and really kind of work in different places in your community. And those are all things that sound interesting to people. Okay, another personal benefit is this industry provides an opportunity to keep learning and to keep growing. So the on-the-job training opportunities, professional development, you know, things that are going to help people continue to grow and learn, you know, professionally and personally in their position, all make a job very interesting and more attractive. The water industry is constantly changing. You know, we know this, it's not stagnant. Regulations change to make sure the water is healthier. Technology is changing to help us meet regulations because regulations are changing. You know, and another thing that we hear people say when we ask them in our classes, you know, why do you like working in water? Or what's something that drew you to this industry? We hear a lot people say, well, I knew that water wasn't going anywhere. Right? There's a certain stability in this industry. We're always going to need water and we're going to need clean water. Okay, so another great selling point is all the strong and professional, the strong active professional organizations, both nationally and locally, that provide mentoring, training, networking opportunities. You know, tell people about these opportunities to be a part of these. I remember when I first kind of started working at the Environmental Finance Center, I was just learning about public water, and I learned about American Water Works Association, and I went home and I told my husband, do you know that there's an entire national network of people just dedicated to water? And he kind of looked at me and he was like, I didn't, but I'm not surprised. Like, water is a pretty big deal. And I was like, had a light bulb moment where I was like, you know what? Water is a really big deal. And it really got me excited and interested in the industry. So make sure your recruits know how many people are working in the same type of industry and what type of organization and network they'd have access to. Okay, so want to take a second to talk about pay. Sometimes it's a touchy topic in the water industry, but according to national statistics, the average wage of a water worker exceeds the average national wage across all occupations. So the wage advantage is especially a little more apparent at the lower end of the income scale. But what this graph tells us is that for median wages in the top 75% of all occupations, water-related occupations pay slightly more than other occupations. Now, these wages are especially attractive maybe for someone looking to earn a livable wage right out of high school. There's a lot of Gen Zs who are looking for a way to make income without taking on that enormous amount of college debt. So if your utility can provide them a decent wage out of high school while they maybe figure out what they want to do, that's great. So according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the 2015 median pay for a water and wastewater treatment plant operator was $44,790. And that's only $4,000 under the median pay of recent graduates of four-year college programs. So it is a way, if you're looking to kind of avoid the college debt, maybe, you know, at high schools that we work with on our Work in Water program, there's always counselors who are looking, they're hungry for opportunities for their students that they know have great skills, great potential, but are not college-bound students. They're always looking for opportunities to put them in jobs out of high school. So if you can connect with them maybe and work something out there, that could be an opportunity to kind of funnel talent into your system. Okay, so another personal benefit is just that professional connection to the community. So, you know, part of working in water, we want to educate the public about water. I know lots of utilities have programs where they teach students in their community about water. So that opportunity to share your work and to share the importance of your job with the community is something that is kind of out of the ordinary and people might see as exciting. All right, and then finally, when we're focusing on personal benefits, think about selling your community as a great place to live and work. I know a lot of smaller systems from smaller communities in our workshops say, you know, we feel like we can't compete because everyone wants to move to that up and coming part of the state. Everyone wants to live in that up and coming city with the jobs and the restaurants and the stuff, and that's where all the younger kids are moving. But what's unique about your small town? Think about why you love working there and why you love living there. Do you have a great farmer's market, you know, with fresh produce? You know, what about a local cafe or a restaurant that's kind of a hidden gem, or community events like fall festivals? Think of the reasons that you love living in your town and use those reasons to make people want to live in your town too. So, you know, big city living, it's kind of overrated. There's traffic, you know, how long is the commute in your city? How close are the schools to where you work? How far away? So, you know, people sometimes are looking for that reason to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. All of that could be very taxing. And speaking of taxes, you know, what is your city's sales tax? I live in the very up and coming part of Kansas, and my sales tax is 9.5%, and it's tough. The cost of living is very high, and so if your cost of living is great, make sure people know that, because there could be millennials who are ready to settle down with their family, buy a house, and you might be the perfect next place for them to live. All right, finally, let's move on from personal benefits to technology. So we want to talk about all that new technology that's being used in the water industry. Technology is vital for younger generations. There was a Pew Research study that found that students put technology in the same category as air and water. So necessary for survival. They need water, they need air, they need technology. Okay, so younger generations are not afraid of technology. It's a hallmark of success and progress. It shows them that your industry is still relevant because people are investing technology into it. So make sure we sell that to them. Okay, so you know some selling points now we want to include in our job postings. So next step is to take a look at your utilities job postings, take a look at your employment website, and get it updated. So make sure you have an effective job description down for each position in your company. You know, they should reflect careful thought as to the roles that individual will fill, the skills they'll need, the personality attributes that are important to completing the tasks. May sound fairly basic, but you know, you'd be surprised how many small companies or small systems don't have updated job descriptions on hand. So I know there's a lot of HR requirements that we have to list in the actual job description or the job posting, but we don't have to lead with those when we are trying to get the word out about this job, right? When we're posting on social media, when we have kind of the opening paragraphs of our hiring websites, or we're handing out flyers at an event, we don't have to lead with all those kind of like, you know, must be able to lift 50 pounds and must be able to work outside in hot temperatures. We don't have to lead with those. Instead, we want to lead with those selling points that we talked about. So use your water industry marketing campaign techniques to create targeted and meaningful, attractive messaging. This is your chance to really get people interested in the job, really get people to keep reading. So also end with an impactful call to action, something that encourages prospective candidates to hit that apply button. Something like, you know, if this sounds like the place where you'd thrive, check out these opportunities, or search careers, join our team. End with that call to action. What do you want them to do next? And then if you ever get stuck or you aren't sure how to kind of update your job posting, I like to just Google online or maybe look at some bigger utilities that have an entire team dedicated to these tasks to kind of find inspiration or sentences that you like and then kind of make them your own for your utility. All right, real quickly, we are going to cover staff retention strategies because I want to have some time for some questions here at the end. So there's lots of things that we can do to improve retention that doesn't involve increasing salary, but let's just be honest, sometimes it is about the salary, okay? So, you know, sometimes we really have to step back and have a tough conversation with our leaders, our board. Is our utility paying more than what someone could make at, you know, the local big box store, local restaurant? What about competing tech industries like lineman work? If the answer is no, then we're not paying competitively enough with these other job opportunities. You know, we're going to have some tough conversations about how much we're willing to pay to ensure our community has access to safe, clean water. So we want to think about, you know, on this note, no business, no home, no school can thrive without water. Does our pay scale reflect that importance? All right, so sometimes we get it, it's just not going to happen. We cannot increase our salaries, it's not an option. So if that's the case, that's okay. There's other ways that we can provide compensation that goes beyond the dollar, beyond the bank. But we're going to have to get creative here. We're going to have to go above and beyond to attract employees with great benefits. So not only official benefits like health and retirement, vacation, sick leave, but also benefits that make working at your utility and make it more appealing to work at your utility than to work somewhere else. So for today's world of dual income families, it can be really hard to balance work and family. What benefits could your organization provide to make work and life balance achievable for your employees? Because work-life balance can be more important for people than pay. So what could we do? Could we offer flexible schedules? It could be as simple as maybe one of your employees wants a longer lunch so they can get their workout in, and they'll work either 15 minutes early or 15 minutes later. It could be time off for volunteering, training, tuition reimbursement. Compressed work weeks are really popular for some employees. If they have that ability to work maybe 4 10-hour shifts instead of 5 8-hour shifts, that could be perfect for helping them manage their family life. That could be the perfect job for them. So get creative with what benefits and flexibility you can offer. It doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all. We could ask our employees what they need, what would make their work-life balance better. They seem like little things that don't matter, but they matter so much. Flexibility helps keep our employees longer. All right, so second step in retention strategy is going to be evaluation. So 52% of exiting employees say their manager or organization could have done something to prevent them from leaving. So if we would have been taking time to give frequent feedback and evaluation with our employees, we could learn, what we can do to keep them happy before it's too late. And it could be something really simple that's completely, easy to do for us. So give frequent feedback, find those opportunities to talk and listen to your employees, and shift the focus of the job from the evaluation of the job, not the person. So we're evaluating the job, not the person. The evaluation should not be about them as an employee, but what they can do as an employee, and that empowers them to kind of take control of their role in the organization. So just giving your employees the chance to check in with you as a leader, to talk about what's going well, what challenges they're facing, even if you can't fix their problems for them, just giving them that chance to be heard, that means a lot, and that can be reciprocated and boosted morale, and may be just the thing that keeps you from losing one of your really great employees. All right, training. There's so many training opportunities in this job, so employees want to grow in their positions. Keeps their job from becoming stagnant. So it's important for employees to see that your utility is investing in him or her. The individual feels like they can continue to learn, feels like they're more comfortable in their job. And people worry about paying for staff, to train them, and then they just leave. But what happens if we don't pay to train them and they stay? All right, final way that we can focus on employee retention is one of my favorites because it's very effective, but it's completely free. And that is having a continual employee focus. So we pay a lot of attention to making our customers happy. We want to have that same energy and focus on making sure our staff is happy, because happy staff don't leave us. So assess your work environment. Is it comfortable? Is it inviting? Is it someplace that you want to spend 40+ hours a week working at? Now, some positions, some jobs in this industry are never going to be comfortable. But for this guy, what could we do to make this guy's jobs better on this day? Make sure he has good equipment, a truck that runs, that has the heat working in it. Maybe just appreciation for his hard work on this snow day. Maybe it's having warm coffee back at the office. Think of ways that we can, kind of serve our employees and show our appreciation for them. Simply giving recognition is so effective. in keeping our employees happy. So don't forget to give your attention and recognition to your all-star employees. You know, we think that our really good employees know that they're doing a good job, but they don't always know. So these employees, above all the others, are the ones that we don't want to leave, and they need our feedback and positive recognition as well. So try to reshift your energy from constantly managing maybe your more delinquent employees that take a little more oversight, and start shifting your energy on your really great employees, making sure they're recognized and making sure that they're happy. Okay, to wrap it up for today, we talked about why water jobs are so critical, why they're so important. We talked about some of the challenges that the water workforce is facing. We talked about how important succession planning is. We need to plan for people to leave, and we need to do it before they leave. And then we also talked about recruitment, how we want to promote water industry jobs with key selling points. And finally, we talked about retention. And although sometimes we do have to look at our wages, we can create value beyond the dollar. Recognition is a very good way to do that. So that is all I have today. I think I've left us with about 10 minutes for questions. So Tess, I will hand it back over to you. I think you have a quick polling question for us.
Yes, I definitely do. So as you've all heard, there are numerous challenges with recruiting, retaining, having a succession plan. If you, like many people, struggle with this and you'd like some help maybe getting started or looking at your own gaps, someone like Leslie might be available to help you if you are from a small system. So please go ahead and take this poll. We just want to know, maybe if you'd like some information about technical assistance, let us know. If not, you can let us know, and we will get in touch with you if that's something that you might be interested in. So I will give you one more second just to fill this out, and then I'll close it. And then a second order of like housekeeping business that I wanted to take care of, we have a quick evaluation form. If you'd like to give us some feedback, we really love learning what you think, and we incorporate it in all of our program updates and in our planning. So there is an evaluation form going into the chat. Feel free to click on that and give us your feedback. And I think now we can get right into the questions. Okay, so there's just a few. So I think this is just to reiterate, yes, the PowerPoint slides, we will upload them as a PDF to our website, and you will have access to them. We will give you a link in our follow-up email, and you'll be able to page through them yourself, and we should be able to send that email out within a few days. Okay, all right, so our first question for you, Leslie, you had mentioned that you have a work in water program, just briefly. Could you maybe say more about what that program is and let us know how that came to be?
Yes, I can. So let me actually type in the chat box here the website link to that program. It's www.wichita.edu/workinwater. I want to make sure I type it right, so hold on, bear with me. There we go. Okay, I have put it in the chat box, so if you want to go check it out, you can. So this is a program that we started at my university with an environmental education grant from EPA. And in Kansas, we basically kind of did this pilot program where we went out to different high schools and we partnered with the local utility there. And we did a half-day program that educated high school students about public water and about public water careers. So the first part of the day was kind of an interactive classroom session. We did like some fun hands-on, demonstrations, like teaching them about what groundwater is. We had like a glass of ice that we poured orange soda in and then, put the straw in, and it was our pump, and we sucked the soda out from the ground and taught them, that's what groundwater is like. So we did some fun stuff like that. And then the second part of the day is when we go on a field trip of the utility and just get, students aware of what public water is and what career opportunities there are. And then so for our grant, we also offered an internship program. So their students would apply, they would interview with the utility, and they would hire one summer intern that would work at the utility for the year or for the semester of summer, doing different jobs around the utility. And so our first intern was at City of El Dorado, Kansas, and she was going to go to college to be an actuary. And she actually decided to change her major to civic engineering, and she wants to do engineering for water infrastructure now. So she changed her career path, and she just got a scholarship from Kansas AWWA. So it's been a very successful program, and I think that our water utilities that have participated in the program have been really kind of blown away at how interested the students really were in their work. You know, it was just as kind of eye-opening and refreshing for the utility staff as it was for the students. But if you want to learn more about that, you can check it out at the website in the chat box.
Awesome. And maybe just to follow up on that, you know, so there are a lot of schools popping up, and technical schools, even charter schools, and they have more of a focus on the type of competencies that would be related to the water workforce. But in your experience, what are some of the best ways to start the conversation, or, you know, reach out to the counselors and get a program started that might help train some of these incoming generations?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I should have mentioned also that at that website, we have tools and templates that we use that were very successful in helping us connect with career counselors, that we have kind of just created for utilities to download to use for their own, you know, if they want to try to do it in their community. So this year, actually, we took the project and we kind of made it into a train the trainer, where we are going around to utilities and teaching them, you know, how we got this program started and how they can do it in their community. So we've only done that in our region, EPA Region 7. We haven't made it out to Alabama yet, but if you're interested in those resources, my colleague Tanya, who manages the program, would absolutely, you know, she would love to talk to you and get you started. But on our website, we have like the PowerPoint we used for the student presentation. We have tips for leading great tours of your facility. And we have kind of like email templates that you can use when you're reaching out to school counselors. But during this program, we were surprised how on board the counselors were with the program. Like I said, they're just looking for opportunities for their students that maybe aren't college bound. So they are usually really on board, but you do have to be willing to kind of do the heavy lifting for them, because they just don't have time to put the program together themselves. So that's why we wanted to make the program easier for you guys to get started with. So if you check out that website, we have all our tools, all our PowerPoints, all our materials for you to use if you want to check it out.
That's fantastic. So maybe just building off this discussion of resources, you know, you had mentioned the importance of getting all the, you know, the benefits and the selling points into a good job description. Do you also, can you recommend a good place to look for some good examples of job descriptions, or some good examples of really compelling or powerful usage of job descriptions in recruiting online that you've seen from water systems, or where can people go to find some of those examples?
Yeah, so DC Water does a really great job. They, of course, have like a huge department, you know, dedicated to human resources. And so they have invented the wheel. You don't have to recreate or reinvent the wheel. So DC Water is a great place to check out. It's usually just the bigger utilities that have a little more time and resources to do it. So if there's a bigger utility near you, they might have some resources that they'd be willing to share with you. But really, with Google, you can search really quickly and find some really great examples online. Even just searching on Indeed, there's a lot of different, you know, if you just search water operator, there's lots of great job postings that pop up. And, you know, there's always parts I like of some and some I don't like so much. So you can just kind of pull what parts work for you. and really just make it work for your utility and make it your own.
Awesome. So we are right at the top of the hour, so I think we're out of time. If there's any other questions, go ahead and you can always reply to any of the GoToWebinar messages or email us at Small Systems, and we will get your questions shuffled over to Leslie or anyone else that might be able to answer them. And on that note, I'd like Leslie to turn it back to you for any closing comments.
All right, I don't think I have anything else. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you found some of this content valuable. And Tess, I think we can close it down. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Have a great day.